In this video, we are going to talk about a major shift in how we manage cloud infrastructure. For many years, tools like Terraform have made the industry believe a myth. They claim that state files are absolutely required to manage the cloud. They said you must keep a static copy of your infrastructure in a file to make things work. Today, we are going to show you that this claim is simply not true. It is an outdated way of working that creates errors and security risks. In this video, we will fix this problem. We will introduce MechCloud's stateless infrastructure as code and real-time pricing. We are here to prove that you do not need state files, and you should never deploy blindly again. Let us take a look at the industry right now. This slide shows the infrastructure as code landscape before MechCloud. You can see many big names here, like Terraform, Pulumi, and Stateless. You'll also notice the massive amount of funding these companies have raised. We're looking at hundreds of millions of dollars. But there's a major problem hiding behind all these different logos. Most of these platforms do not actually offer a new core engine. Instead, they use Terraform under the hood, either directly or indirectly by creating a wrapper around the Terraform provider. Take Pulumi, for example. While it lets you write your infrastructure in different programming languages, it still heavily relies on underlying Terraform providers to actually communicate with the cloud. By relying on the Terraform ecosystem directly or indirectly, all of these tools have inherited the exact same problems that Terraform suffers from. Because they are tied to that foundation, they all rely on state files, bringing the same errors, risks, and complex workflows right back to your team. Now let us look at the landscape after MechCloud enters the picture. As you can see on the right side of your screen, we have grouped all those well-known tools together. They all fall under the category of stateful infrastructure as code. Despite all their funding, they are all tied to the old way of doing things. Now look at the left side. Here you see a completely new category. It is called stateless infrastructure as code. And right now, MechCloud stands alone in this space. We are not just another tool trying to manage state files better. We have eliminated the state file completely. This represents a fresh start for your cloud infrastructure. By removing the state file, we remove the limits on how fast and how safely your team can work. We are bringing a much-needed revolution to the DevOps space. Now that we have eliminated the state file, let us look at the direct advantages of this stateless approach. First, because there are no state files, there is absolutely no state drift and no state corruption. Your deployment always reads the live cloud, so your information is always perfectly accurate. Second, you no longer need to set up and manage object storage, like S3 buckets, just to store your state files. Third, because we read the live cloud in real time, there is no need to run slow sync or refresh commands before you apply your changes. Fourth, you do not need to worry about encryption for state files. Traditional tools often leak sensitive passwords in plain text within these files. By removing the file, we remove that massive security risk. Fifth, you will never face a lost state disaster again. In the old model, if a state file gets accidentally deleted, your team is completely paralyzed. With MechCloud, that nightmare is gone. Sixth, there are absolutely no resource imports required. You do not need to write complex import commands to manage existing infrastructure. Because of this, you will have no migration headaches. Bringing your existing cloud resources into MechCloud is fast and effortless. Next, you get zero vendor lock-in. Because we do not trap your infrastructure data inside a proprietary file, you always maintain full control of your cloud. Finally, we do not use YAML-based pricing. We will never punish you with expensive fees based on the number of resources you have under management. In short, the stateless approach makes your deployment simpler, your infrastructure safer, and your tooling much more cost-effective. Now, let us compare the user experience. We are looking at MechCloud, which is a modern web application, versus traditional tools like Terraform, which rely heavily on a command line interface or CLI. First, with MechCloud, there is absolutely no need to install or upgrade any CLI on your laptop. You access everything directly through your web browser. Second, you do not need to store any long-lived credentials or API keys on your local machine. This instantly removes a major security risk for your organization. Third, Because you are not managing these long-lived secrets locally, there is no need to set up an expensive credentials vault or manage complex encryption. Fourth, MechCloud offers launch day support for new cloud resources. You do not have to wait months for a third-party provider to update. If AWS releases a new service, like a regional NAT gateway, you can use it immediately. Finally, because MechCloud is a centralized web platform, integration with other systems like ServiceNow is extremely easy. You do not have to build custom wrapper scripts to connect your workflows. Before we dive into MechCloud's Stateless, IaC in detail, let us take a look at our core capabilities across the major public cloud providers, AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud Platform. First, we have our core engine, Stateless Infrastructure as Code. This is currently supported for AWS and Azure. It allows for stateless infrastructure provisioning and gives you real-time pricing directly in your plan before you deploy. Next, we offer the Discover and Visualize feature. This is available across AWS, Azure, and GCP, allowing you to instantly scan and see the resources you are already running. To help you manage your budget, we have the Cost Explorer. For AWS and Azure, this tool uses a Gantt chart to let you clearly visualize your costs at the individual resource level on a monthly basis. We also provide a dashboard builder for AWS, Azure, and GCP. This gives your team a convenient static view of all your discovered resources in one place. For overall cloud infrastructure management, you get complete flexibility. You can discover all your resources or focus only on resources tied to a specific resource context. And most importantly for your security, there are absolutely no long-lived credentials stored on the platform. Finally, we have our AI agents. Available across AWS, Azure, and GCP, these agents allow you to manage your infrastructure effortlessly using simple, plain English commands. Before we look at how it actually works under the hood, let us highlight the major advantages MechCloud has over traditional infrastructure as code tools. First, as we have discussed, you get to manage your entire cloud infrastructure without any state files. This removes the biggest bottleneck in modern DevOps. Second, you get real-time pricing integrated directly into your plan. You will never be surprised by a cloud bill again because you see the exact cost before you hit deploy. Third, we offer a superior template authoring experience. We've simplified the way you write and organize your infrastructure code, making it much easier to read and maintain. Finally, there's no MechCloud-specific language to learn. We do not force you to use a proprietary domain-specific language. If you're deploying to AWS, you simply use standard CloudFormation syntax. If you're deploying to Azure, you use standard ARM templates. You can bring your existing knowledge and start building immediately. Now let us dive under the hood. This diagram shows exactly how traditional, stateful tools handle a deployment and where the problem actually begins. First, you write your desired state. You run a plan to see what will be created. At this initial stage, everything is fresh and there is no state file at all. Next, you apply your changes to build the actual cloud resources. This is the exact moment the tool generates and saves a state file. The trap is now set. Later, your team needs to make changes, so you write an updated desired state. When you run a plan this time, the tool is no longer just looking at your code. It now relies heavily on that saved state file to figure out what to do. Finally, when you apply the update, the tool modifies the cloud resources and is forced to carefully update and lock the new state file. As you can clearly see, after that very first deployment, the state file becomes a permanent roadblock in your workflow. It sits right in the middle, creating an unnecessary layer of complexity every single time your team tries to update the cloud. Now, let us look at the solution. This diagram shows how MechCloud's stateless infrastructure as code completely fixes that broken workflow. First, you write your desired state, but this time when you run a plan, things are very different. Instead of looking at a local file, MechCloud connects directly to your live cloud to check the actual state. At this exact same moment, during the plan stage, MechCloud also provides real-time pricing. You instantly see the exact cost of the resources you're about to build. Next, you simply apply your changes. MechCloud builds the resources directly into your actual cloud environment. Notice that absolutely no state file was generated or saved. Later, when your team needs to make a change, you write your updated desired state, you run a plan, and once again, MechCloud talks directly to the live cloud and gives you updated real-time pricing. Finally, you apply the update, and the actual state is modified directly. As you can clearly see, the workflow is completely clean. The state file is gone forever. There are no roadblocks in the middle. It is a fast, safe, and direct line from your code to your cloud. Let us see how you actually use the MechCloud interface to deploy your infrastructure. First, you start by selecting your cloud account from the menu. Next, you choose the target region where you want your resources to live. Then you select a specific resource context that you want to work on. Once your setup is complete, you simply trigger a plan. The interface will instantly show you exactly what will be created, changed, or deleted in your live environment. After reviewing the plan, you just apply to build everything directly in your cloud. Compare this to traditional tools like Terraform. With those tools, your team has to memorize and type out an endless list of complex commands just to manage a single deployment. With MechCloud, everything is visual. You just point, click, and deploy. It is that simple. Let us dive into one of our most powerful features, real-time pricing. MechCloud integrates real-time pricing directly into your deployment plan. When you trigger a plan, you do not just see what will be built, you instantly see the exact cost of the resources you're about to create or change right on your screen. We do not just give you a single vague number. MechCloud breaks down the pricing across various major dimensions, such as compute, storage, and networking. Then we go even deeper into subdimensions. For example, under the storage dimension, you'll clearly see separate costs for the disk itself and for the disk operations. To keep things perfectly clear, the pricing shown on any major dimension is simply the total sum of all the subdimensions under it. This gives you complete visibility into where every single penny is going. Finally, we give you incredible flexibility to save money. For virtual machines, MechCloud highlights the spot pricing right next to the normal pricing. This allows your team to instantly compare costs and make a smart decision on whether to proceed with a normal VM or save budget by choosing a spot VM. MechCloud focuses on not just how you provision your infrastructure, but also on your template authoring experience. We want to make writing code as easy and efficient as possible. First, let us look at the left side of your screen. This is a traditional Terraform template. As you can see, just to provision a very simple public IP address, it requires a heavy amount of setup. You are forced to write out a specific Terraform block, a provider block, a data block, and finally a resource block. It is a lot of unnecessary code to manage for a basic task. Now, let us look at the right side. This is the MechCloud template for the exact same public IP address. MechCloud dramatically improves the template authoring experience. The code is clean, concise, and incredibly easy to read. You do not need to write all those extra blocks. You get the exact same result with a fraction of the effort, which saves your team valuable time and greatly reduces the chance of making a mistake. Let us move forward and see another great way MechCloud makes your work simpler. We will look at how easily you can link or reference resources that are created inside the exact same template. As you can see on the left side, traditional methods use a very complex format. To connect things together, you have to write a long resource ID string. You are forced to use this complicated code whether you are linking to a resource that already exists or a brand new one in your current file. Now, look at the MechCloud template on the right side. We have completely simplified this process. Instead of writing long strings, you simply use our clean reference syntax. For example, to link a network security group from the same template, you just write ref nsg1. That's it. If you need to connect to a nested resource, it is just as direct. You simply write ref vnet1/subnets/subnet1. Because MechCloud easily reads these simple references, it automatically understands how your resources are connected. This means you never have to waste time writing manual depends on statements. The system already knows the correct order to build your cloud infrastructure. Now, let us look at how MechCloud allows you to connect resources across different parts of your organization using our unique resource context. You can think of a resource context as being very similar to a namespace in Kubernetes. It is a way to group and organize your cloud resources. However, unlike Kubernetes, MechCloud gives you the total freedom to move resources from one context to another whenever you need to. This brings us to a huge advantage in template authoring. You can easily reference resources that were provisioned in a completely different context. As you can see on the screen, the syntax remains just as simple. By using this format, your templates can securely pull information from other parts of your infrastructure without any complex configuration. This makes your entire cloud environment feel connected and organized, rather than a collection of isolated silos. We will dive much deeper into the power of resource context later in this video, but for now, just remember how easily it allows your templates to talk to each other. Now, let us explore how MechCloud handles existing Azure resources that were not created in your current template. We've made this process incredibly smooth and intuitive. First, look at the top block appearing on your screen. When you need to connect to a resource that already exists within the same resource group, you simply use this direct syntax. There's no need for long, complicated resource IDs or extra configuration blocks. You just point to it and move on. Now, let us look at the second block. If the resource you need lives in a completely different resource group, the process is just as easy. You simply include the resource group name in your reference syntax. MechCloud handles the connection logic in the background. This allows your new deployments to interact perfectly with your established Azure environment, regardless of where your existing resources are located. Let us look at how MechCloud helps you write even less code while achieving more. We do this through the use of defaults and smart variables. First, imagine you have a template that is creating several different resources. Usually, you would have to type the same resource group name over and over again for every single item. With MechCloud, you can simply use the default section. You capture common attributes like the resource group one time at the top. MechCloud then automatically applies those settings to all the resources in your template. This keeps your code clean and free of repetitive typing. Next, we have a very smart feature called Current IP. Often, you need to whitelist your own IP address to access a cloud resource. Instead of looking up your IP and typing it in manually every time, you simply use the current IP variable. MechCloud automatically detects the IP address of the machine you are working from and populates it for you. This is a massive time saver and ensures your security rules are always accurate and up to date. Now, let us look at how MechCloud solves a major headache for everyone working with AWS. We call this resource ID aliases. Usually, when you create a template in AWS, you're forced to deal with specific image IDs, or AMIs. The problem is that these IDs change from one region to another. A template that works in North Virginia will fail in Mumbai because the AMI IDs are different. This forces you to create complex mapping tables or edit your code every time you switch regions. MechCloud eliminates this frustration completely. Instead of hard-coding a specific ID, you use a resource ID alias. You simply tell MechCloud the type of image you want, and our platform automatically finds the correct ID for your target region. This means your templates become truly region agnostic. You can take the exact same template and deploy it in any AWS region in the world without changing a single line of code. It makes your infrastructure portable, reliable, and much easier to manage. Now, let us look at how MechCloud takes the power of AWS CloudFormation and makes it much more developer-friendly. While we leverage the standard CloudFormation schema, we have made the syntax much cleaner. Instead of using camel case, MechCloud uses snake underscore for both property names and resource types. This makes the code feel much more natural and modern for most developers. The biggest difference, however, is how we handle resource relationships. Standard CloudFormation templates use a flat hierarchy. This means every resource is at the same level, and you are forced to manually specify parent IDs inside every child resource. This leads to a lot of repetitive code and makes it hard to see how things are connected. MechCloud changes this by using a nested resource hierarchy. As you can see on the screen, we use a parent-child structure. Because a child resource is nested directly inside its parent, you never have to specify the parent ID. MechCloud understands the relationship automatically. This makes a template much shorter and easier to navigate. You can see the structure of your infrastructure at a single glance. Next, let us see how we have reimagined the authoring experience for Microsoft Azure. Just like our AWS support, we leverage the existing Azure ARM template schema, but we have refined it for modern developers. First, we've replaced the standard property names with a clean snake case format. A major shift you'll notice immediately is the file format. While traditional ARM templates are written in bulky, bracket-heavy JSON, MechCloud templates are written in YAML. This makes your infrastructure code much more readable and significantly easier to maintain. We've also greatly simplified how you define your resource hierarchy. In a standard ARM template, writing nested resources requires navigating complex JSON structures with endless brackets and commas, which can easily lead to syntax errors. In MechCloud, we use a natural, clean parent-child hierarchy. Because we use YAML, the nesting is visually clear and intuitive. You can see exactly which resource belongs to which parent just by looking at the indentation, without the noise of the JSON syntax. Another key difference is the speed of development. Traditional ARM templates can be difficult to debug and slow to deploy. With MechCloud's stateless approach, you get immediate feedback and real-time pricing for your Azure resources, giving you a much faster and more confident deployment cycle. Earlier, we mentioned the resource context, but what exactly is it? Think of a resource context as a smart, logical container for your cloud infrastructure. If you are familiar with Kubernetes, it is very similar to a namespace. It helps you group and isolate resources belonging to different projects, environments, or teams. But more importantly, the resource context acts as the common bridge between your desired state and your actual state in the cloud. It is designed to solve the biggest problem with traditional tools, the state file lock-in. Usually, if you built a resource manually or used a different tool in the past, importing it into a state file is a painful manual process. MechCloud eliminates that pain by letting you work in two powerful ways. First, you can start from scratch. You define a new resource context, apply your desired state, and MechCloud provisions everything for you from the ground up. But the second way is where MechCloud truly changes the game. You can manage existing resources without any complex migration. Let's say you have servers created by the Cloud Console, the CLI, or even a third-party tool years ago. To bring them under MechCloud's control, you don't need complex import scripts. You simply add a single tag to them, MC Resource Context. That's it. Once that tag is added, MechCloud instantly recognizes those resources. You can now synchronize your desired state with your actual state effortlessly. Whether you're building something new or managing legacy infrastructure, the resource context gives you the flexibility to manage the past, the present, and the future, all with a simple tag. Now that we know what a resource context is, let us see how you can use them to model your real-world cloud infrastructure. In the cloud, nothing exists in a void. To run a server, you first need a subnet, and for that subnet, you need a VPC. MechCloud lets you handle these dependencies in two different ways. First, look at option 1, the single context. Imagine a production setup where you need total isolation. You can bundle everything, the VPC, the subnet, and the EC2 instances into one single resource context. This creates a self-contained stack. It is simple to manage because if you destroy the context, everything goes away together. Now look at option 2, multiple context. This is common for development environments. You don't want to create a brand new VPC for every single developer. That is wasteful. Instead, you split the ownership. A network architect creates a network context. This holds the VPC and the subnets. Then the DevOps team creates separate dev contexts that just hold the EC2 instances. These EC2 instances simply plug into the existing subnets from the network context. This allows different teams to manage their own layers of the stack independently. However, you must remember the dependency rule. Because the EC2 instances rely on the network, you cannot destroy the network context while the dev contexts are still running. You must clean up the children before you remove the foundation. This is why MechCloud is powerful. It supports both dedicated stacks and shared infrastructure models, depending on what your team needs. So we have to ask, are you ready for a DevOps revolution? Let us look at exactly what you get when you switch to MechCloud. First, we eliminate the biggest headache in infrastructure as code. There are no state files to manage, lock, or lose. Next, you get real-time pricing. You see the cost of your infrastructure before you even click apply, putting you in total control of your budget. We also ensure your security is tighter than ever with no secret storage. Your sensitive data stays where it belongs, in your own cloud. For the future of automation, MechCloud introduces AI agents. These agents work alongside your team to make cloud management smarter and faster. And finally, we give you a clear view of your spending with our Cost Explorer, featuring a unique Gantt-style view to help you track your cloud expenses over time. MechCloud is built to simplify your work, reduce your costs, and secure your future. It's a smarter way to manage the cloud. Visit mechcloud.io to start your journey today. Thank you for watching.